Brandon, your issue that you brought up, I wasn't made aware of it, and it's not on the agenda. And as you know, I don't accept chairman's business, so I'm not bringing in. Councillor,
Chair, point of order. Chair, point of order. The meeting's not over. I've raised a point of order, and I am legally entitled to resign from this council, Chair. Are you saying I'm not? Am I not allowed? I find your brand of censorship, Chair, is disgraceful for a member of what would be a party who talks about equality, that you want to censor me from standing down as a councillor, Chair. And I want legal advice on that now, so you may get Eddie Curtis in here to see if you're within your legal rights, because you're wrong. As well as morally, it's despicable. And once again, another attack on Brenton Curran and Brenton Curran's family, which I expect from you, and it is absolutely despicable. And I look at the rest of you sitting around here, and no wonder you're embarrassed, because I'd be embarrassed too, Mickey. And I think it's your brand of republicanism which is destroying republicanism in this area. And you can smirk all you want.
I'm not smirking at all.
Well, maybe I must be going blind. But I am legally allowed. I am legally allowed and entitled to resign.
Well, we'll get opinion on that there, first, Brandon.
I don't need your opinion, Mickey.
Well, you will.
Standing order says that I can resign if I want.
You will not be speaking.
Mickey, what are you going to do? You're going to put me out? Why don't? Well, then I would speak, Mickey, and then I'd say it.
I prefer to see somebody get somebody in to put you out, but that won't happen, Brandon.
Well, do you know what, Mickey? At least that would be more, less embarrassing than what you try to do to censor. Absolute disgrace. And I'm delighted. Yes, you are censoring. You're refusing to let me have my say, and it isn't chairman's business. I'm entitled to resign from this council, and after 30 years, 28 and a half representing the party, making the T-shirt that you wear so shamelessly, and then you refuse me. That's what equality, that's what Sinn Féin's about. This is the equality, this is what you're voting for. And do you know what? Mickey Brady's his representative. So get out and vote for him. It's a disgrace. I've been in this chamber and I've been called a murderer and a killer and a bomber by loyalists. But you know what? You know what? They never stop me from speaking. Yeah, go ahead, Terry Hardy. Tell them all, the boys and girls, to get out. But I'll read it out for the people that's here, because it'll be embarrassing. And it's shameful that our mayor is away out as well. I just want to thank my wife, who despite the onslaughts and attack on us and our home, stood shoulder to shoulder with me throughout the entire journey. I want to thank my children, who still have to live with the legacy of being the children of a Republican ex-prisoner and a councillor, who had to sleep in their bedrooms with inch-thick plate armour steel on their bedrooms to keep them safe at night. I want to thank the council staff, who sat up in the wee small hours of the council meeting and who helped me. And I want to talk particularly about Paddy O'Hagan, Kevin O'Neill, Thomas McCall, and of late Eddie Curtis, and all the council staff who work in all the wee small offices, who make us councillors as successful as we are and as accountable as we are, and I think that should be paid tribute to them. Life as a councillor, and in particular life as a Sinn Féin councillor, was a very dangerous and difficult place to be. It was also a very lonely place to be. And I often remarked that no matter how packed a room was, because of my brand of politics and because of my unrepentantness, there was always room for me, because people would give you that leper effect and move away from you. I was elected as a first Sinn Féin councillor in Uri in over 70 years. I was the first Sinn Féin chairman. I was the first Republican chair of the local policing committee, and those were groundbreaking and leading our community, and I'm very proud of that. Very importantly, the last 18 months, and it's a pity my Sinn Féin colleagues of the past didn't stay here for this, because they're up their neck in it, as you've seen from Mickey. The last 18 months were particularly difficult for my family and I, where I had no choice but to remove myself from what I call the Newry and South Armagh version of Sinn Féin, a group which has become the property of a small domineering clique controlled by a steak knife character in Sinn Féin, who tries to remove his opposition by the gang mentality And I, as a whistleblower, raised this issue, and I raised it within the Republican movement. And they came and they visited me and my wife, and they took our opinion. And on the basis of that opinion, they then went and spoke to other people, and they discovered that Brendan Curran was right, that what was going on in the Republican movement in Uri was wrong. So they set about a whole review, and they removed the leadership of the Republican movement in Uri, and they replaced it by a man from Short Strand. They put him in place to try and clear up the Uri situation. For 6 months they tried that, and it didn't work. They took it back. And as a whistleblower, I then became the victim. And whistleblowers, like sex abuse victims, they become the victim. And speaking about sex abuse victims, I raised within Sinn Féin about a paedophile priest who had abused hundreds of our children in this district, in all our schools in this district. And I was told by this steak knife character that that was negative publicity, that I needed to drop that, and we shouldn't be talking about that. That's how Sinn Féin seen it then. And then we talk about the young fella who came out recently, Francie Malloy, made an absolutely absurd and scandalous decision, and then he withdrew it quickly. But he done the damage, because see the victims in this area and in Francie's area, he's told them to keep your mouth shut, because nobody's going to listen to you. And sadly, that's what is going to happen. Victims will not come out, and victims will find it hard to come out. So that's my history with regard to that. Negative campaigning, that's what raising the issue of child abuse. Hundreds of them in our schools, and that's what is classed as by some of our Sinn Féin colleagues. Regrets, I have to say, in my 43 years as Republican, I regret very little. And that's not to say that I would not have wished that there was another way to achieve the things. But personally, I once again reiterate my regret, and he's not here tonight, but Davy Hyland and his family, with the Republican movement, treated him. Again, the steak knife character spun the wheels and the yarns about Davy Hyland, and people followed it, and I sadly did too, and I regret that. And then we had the issue of the killing of Ian Marley, the son of a good friend of mine. And again, steak knife put out the lies, and I was the public mouthpiece, and I spun out those lies, believing they were the truth, and they weren't. They were wrong, and they were shameful. And these people still talk about executed touts. They talk about Jean McConville, while the Republican movement, in fairness to it, talked about it being terrible and a dark part of our history. We have people in that clique down there who still call them executed touts. And that's why I felt that there was no place for my brand of honourable politics within Uri Sinn Féin. And I just hope it isn't replicated throughout the rest of the district. And other people will verify every single thing that I have said here. So, I say to them, and it's an old song that they use, the higher they build their walls, the taller I become. So I don't care what lies, and they walk out. Shameful. And I can be sure that Mickey, hopefully, will have to answer to Jerry Adams why he walked out. And they talked about the SDLP a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? And they refused to let a man who gave 43 years of his life, a lot of it in prison, to have his last say as a councillor in this chamber. But the people will judge them. Hey, so I do want to thank the council workers. I've enjoyed my role as a councillor. I've actually been able to do a lot of good in my councillor. I want to thank my councillor colleagues, even though sometimes we didn't agree politically, they helped us to achieve the greater goal, well, it's economic development and all the rest of that. So, on behalf of myself and my family, I would just like to wish you well and hope you just work and don't do what these people know. Shameful. And Charlie threatened me with court about his daughter. It's there on Facebook for everybody to see, and I'll show him the private messages his daughter sent me. So let him take me to court. But sadly I have to take this council to court because it's breached the decency that I showed this council. So, best of luck to you in your new term, and particularly Jackie, myself and Frank who's retiring. We'll just slip into the sunset gracefully. Sinead.
Brendan, can I wish you well, not just yourself, but all the other councillors that are leaving, Jackie, Andy, Frank, John, and quite sure Connor. And on behalf of us all, I can tell you, just as you were going through all that, it's not easy being an SDLP councillor sometimes either as well, you know. And you mentioned the DPP there. I was the first one in, and it was difficult at that time. But your term in council has been a long one. You'll never be accused of shying away from what you believe. And I just wish you well on behalf of the SDLP and all our outgoing councillors. It is, in many ways, the end of an era. And it'll be interesting to see how the new super council works out. But good luck.
Sorry, can I just...
Can I wish Brendan all the best to you? And I know that when I was in there working in the council, I always admired Brendan because in the early stages he was the only Sinn Féin representative on the council, him and Jim McAllister, but and he was the first Sinn Féin chairman. But I have to say I was disappointed tonight that because I think all I wanted to do was if Brendan couldn't bring forward a proposal, and I was only asking and requesting that the new super council look at the situation again in light of all the concerns and protests that there was regarding the people that was working in the pool. And it was only just to look at it. I think all Brendan wanted was to look at it again, and all I was asking was for them to look at it again. And I've taken this opportunity, and I'll do it now publicly if they can. But all they have to do is look at the whole situation again. That's all they have to do. Yeah. Chairman, but just to finally to wish Brendan and the family. I know the family. I knew his mother and father and all belonged to him all my life. Decent, hard-working people. And I think Brendan will be missed like the rest of it, like Frank and John and all of our colleagues that's scored tonight. But Brendan would be missed because he was an out fought for the best for Newry and for Newry and more over the years he was there. I wish your best out anyway.
Brendan, just on account of, and I know Henry, you're going to go in there to wish him all the best, right? But I just want to tell you that the SDLP, myself and Gary, have met with the officials, and we actually came up with we asked for a proposed compromise in the new council to accommodate the private lessons, and it was rejected. So I don't want you to think there that we didn't. So
We didn't hear that.
you didn't, but I just want to wish you best of luck. You did teach my kids at one point, so, and we mightn't agree politically, but you're not a bad child after all.
That's a compliment.
For me it is.
Wednesday night we had a very, very rough talk in this chamber between myself and Councillor Curran. Sometimes it got very, very, very rough. And I seen the other night there, he was accusing me of throwing him into the back of a Land Rover and everything. But the curious thing is, I know exactly where I stand with Brendan Curran. That's been one of the things that has always struck me in this chamber. All the rest of these shinners, you never know where you stand with them. One minute they're smiling at you, the next minute they're growling at you. Curran, and in fairness to him, he's always been the same. He's a Republican. I hate him for that. I hate his politics. But at least I knew exactly where I stood with him. And there's even been times over the last 20 years when I've been in this chamber when there's been glimpses of humanity from him. And I'm thinking on one occasion in particular, whenever this council wanted to stop Kilkeel Hockey Club getting this money, to force them to, this council was forcing them to open it on a Sunday. And lo and behold, who was the councillor who stepped out of it and said, look, this isn't right. If they want to keep it shut on a Sunday, let them do it. It was Councillor Curran. So while I detest his politics, I don't know anything about him personally, but I detest what he's done in the past. He said maybe it was me he was referring to when I called him a shooter and all in the past. And he was that, and he knows that. But at least I know exactly what he was and what he is, and we'll leave it at that now. But when it comes down to politics in this chamber, at least when you know what you're dealing with, then you can work. But when these shinners, you never know from one minute to the next what they are.
I would like to
You're not.
and debates about his politics, which I didn't agree with whatsoever. But because he was always inclined to shout his way into trouble and then to shout his way out of it. But over the years, he became quite an astute politician. He He was very hard-working councillor and did an awful lot of good for the area in Uri. And I got to know him quite well, and I wish him well in the future. Though I never agreed to stay with his politics, particularly during the years of the bomb and the bullet. But I do wish him and Jane every success and a long and happy life in the future. Because he always had guts and he always was brave to speak out.
I do think he's a friend, but you say it as it is. I wish you and Jane and your family all the best in the future, and hopefully we keep in contact.
That in writing to myself. There is a procedure that has to be gone through, so if you could drop me an email or something through, then I can put it through. And if I can thank the friend that I have known him since I was in the council in 1984, then I've always been aware that we get on very well, and we'd be very honest with each other, and I would wish him and his family all the success for the future.